All right, everyone. The Dr. Alex Show is brought to you by Shed Light Cold Lasers. And Shed Light Cold Lasers has been a game changer for us at HML professionally and personally at home. Personally, on a personal note, I had a very bad bout of vertigo. And I got probably 85% there by going to a few different functional neurologists over the years to help me out with it. Then I bought this. And this is a game changer because one, it's portable. That means I can take it to the office, use it on patients all day, make sure it stays charged, come on home, and then throw it in my pocket and use that home. And this is what cleared up my vertigo. Now, professionally, the way it's been the game changer for us in the office is that it has cut our results down by 50%. This can get used on just about anything, any disease disorder that you can think of, it can pretty much get used on. Now, as far as how it has helped us out, it's cut everything down by 50% on our times. So when we're working with our kids with special needs, when we're working with our chronic neurological disorders, autoimmune diseases, to get those people into a good point that they're happy and that we're happy, times have been cut by 50%. You will definitely want to go check out shedlightcoldlasers.com or email Griswold at shedlightinformation@gmail.com, 518-338-6658. Well, all right, everyone. I am very excited about this show here. Just as we said in the intro, we got Dr. Damian Griswold. Now, full disclosure, he is the owner, director, the big man on campus for Shed Light Cold Lasers, which, as you know, is a sponsor of this show. And the reason that I reached out to Dr. Griswold to be a sponsor of this show is because these lasers completely changed my life, my wife's life, kids' life, and our office. We're up to 3 now, and we're probably going to have 4 by the end of this year, if not sooner. Another full disclosure is the funny thing is I've been practicing about 8 years, and Dr. Griswold will tell you how long he's been practicing, but I have learned from Griswold and his mentors indirectly by basically stealing notes, if you will. And he'll tell you more about the courses and things that he's taught and been involved with. So I feel like I already knew who he was, but then when he trained me on how to use lasers, I really feel like I got to know him. And I've never met him in person, but I feel like he's my best friend because we've had conversations that I've never had with some of my closest friends on the planet. So here we are. So here's Dr. Griswold. So Doc, go ahead and unleash. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been practicing lasers, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doc. I think the backstory on human beings is pretty important and awfully interesting. What is our why, right? What is our why? We talked about that one morning, didn't we?
Yep.
What is our why? Years ago, 13, 14 years ago, I was told I was going to be a daddy. And I was 46 days away from law school. And I was doing research for this healthcare case for this big law firm in downtown Dallas. And I got deep into the research. And I realized there were some cracks in our healthcare system. And having a baby, having God put that little eggshell into my life, it frightened me. And I needed some knowledge. And so I did a pro-con list. And I remember going to my wife at the time and saying, hey, I decided I don't want to go to law school. I would like to go to a medical school. I need knowledge to protect that baby. And in that pro-con list, MD, DO, natural medical doctor in DC, it just came down to I decided to be a chiropractor. I decided to get the knowledge that's needed and also have the ability to work outside the system, outside the box. Dr. William Wong says all the time that 80% of the population, they're repeaters. 20% are thinkers and innovators. And that's kind of where I needed to be. And I know that the people that we surround ourselves with, including obviously you, Nick, we're part of that 20%. You know what also frightened me? Do you remember in school when they told us that 80% of the people would get better? If you just,
Yeah.
if exactly 10%, nothing would change, and 10% would get worse.
Hmm.
Well, that freaked me out a little bit because what if my daughter or somebody part of my family or part of my clinic were part of that 20%?
Right.
So therefore, in school, I was adopted by a Dr. John D'Onofrio, and even early in school, I started going to his Y-File seminar, the longest running clinical seminar in chiropractic history that focused on functional neurology, where he and several others taught how to treat that 20%. Right. And I
Yep.
became an associate professor with the Y-Files. And then I graduated and I was ready to go already because I was a part of that clinical seminar. So I opened up that practice and I just started studying other docs, including Dr. Jerry Tennant, Dr. William Wong. I'm studying right now Dr. Mike Longyear. Alex, whenever you post a video, I'm saving it and I'm studying that. You know, the old axiom, if you know something, you can explain it simply within seconds, right? You got
Hmm.
that gift, Alex. You got that gift.
Oh, thank you.
Not, now we found it, or I found it. Shed Light is a distribution company for the Avant laser back in 2018, and it was a great opportunity to change the paradigm of selling a medical device. And the theme that we went with was based on experience. Is I had bought a laser for a lot of money that was very weak about 10 years ago, and I got no guidance whatsoever. Here's the tool, figure it out. And and that wound
Right.
up in a closet. And being an educator, it's fun. It's a passion to educate people on the possibilities of what can happen.
Hmm.
And so Shed Light was born.
Love it. Um, so I know that when I guess kind of the background for for everyone listening is Lauren and I were practicing in and out of different locations for 6-7 years, something like that. And we're finally able to pull the trigger on our office. And then part of that was getting a humongous loan. That is all always scary. But comes the fun of getting all this fun equipment. And one of them for sure was a laser. So when I was doing research on lasers years ago, I came across Avant. But then within that research, I don't know how, I came across Shed Light. And Shed Light is different because it's the Avant laser, but it has all of those fun settings that we use for different areas of the body, different areas of the brain, or different purposes. So I was lusting after that laser for a long time, and there's a few big name brands of lasers out there, and we don't need to name them or anything. But of course, my wife was like, "Oh no, we have to get this because, this is the laser that I learned about in school from like Dr. Michael Hall or, all these other big wigs at the time that she went to school."
Sure.
And I was like, okay, Doc's really smart. Like, we'll never be as smart as him, but here's the thing, like, this is the better one, and you're not gonna regret it. And I basically pulled the trigger, and she was kind of mad until it arrived, and then she's like, okay, this is the best.
Yeah, I remember ramping you both up at the same time. Remember that?
Yep.
A ramp up, everybody, is wherein when somebody purchases a laser and it arrives, we take the time needed to educate the person on how to use that laser, and then we clinically brainstorm cases, and we've set up a Shed Light closed group page wherein 300 or 400 docs reside, lay people as well, and you're allowed to ask questions. And I field questions on a daily basis because it's fun. Griswold doesn't have all the answers, but Alex, you and I both know when you graduate, your world gets really small, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And sometimes people are they what did we want to after try 5 in school? there was a craving to learn how to treat things. Do you remember that?
Hmm.
How do you treat these things? Why is nobody teaching me how to treat these things?
Yeah, we know how to
And
figure it out, right? But we don't know how to fix it.
absolutely. And and what I figured out now is after being graduating, you too, is figuring out how to treat somebody is a lifetime event. You know, we always have to take the individual into consideration, right? We have a schematic of what to do, but we've learned several things. We've learned, and this is one of the reasons, and I hope this doesn't sound cheesy and salesy, right? Is you and I went to school for a long time to learn how to identify weakness, and then we learned how to strengthen it, find deficit, and we learned how to fill it, locate interference, and we learned how to remove it. Right?
Hmm.
Get that immune system, get that innate ability, that healing behind us, and you and I both threw our weight behind this tool because it helps us to do our job a little better.
Right.
That's
Right. Because yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I know when I was going through school, it was the same thing. You learn about these things. Like, I think I said last show, I would sit there in school and someone standing in front of the class. I say someone, but a professor, smart person, not necessarily not necessarily practicing, would sit there and say, okay, so autism, for instance, went from 1 in 10,000 or 30,000 in the 80s to 1 in 54 or more to this day. And then I ask, okay, why? And they say genetics, and I'm like, that is the worst answer.
absolutely.
You should be walked out of this this building for saying
You
that, because that
memorize that along the way, even as kids were drilled, right? It's
right,
genetic. Did your
right,
great great grandfather have a broken toe? Well, you're going to have a broken toe. I'm
right.
just kidding.
Yeah. Or yeah, everything is genetic. It's passed down. And yeah, though, of course there's some degree to that, but we'd sit there and we learn that, and I'm like, okay, that's not a good enough answer. So you dive in and you'd sit there and figure it out, and you're like, okay, so it's not genetics. A lot of these things, there's a huge lifestyle component to it, and let's go ahead and get it figured out and see if we can reverse it or slow it down or whatever it is. And I know that when it comes to some chiropractors, they like to maybe just adjust. Do they just want to be the upper cervical doc? Do they just want to adjust the spine? And that's all fine, but that's not going to get everyone well. Like you said, that's not going to get the remaining 20% that's really looking for answers, or that 20% who are parents that are looking for answers for their kids. So that's why we use the laser amongst other things in our office.
Amongst other things, I want to drive this home. Is the laser is only a tool. We have many tools in our clinic. It's the doctor that changes things, right? The
Mm-hmm.
laser is only a tool that we reach for when we need it, right?
Yep. It just happens to be that it's really, 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 really versatile. I can't think of a situation where it's not good to use it. I've had a couple situations, unfortunately, where maybe the laser was too much because the person is very sick and they can't handle it. So you got to start low and slow. But being blessed that we have a few in our office, I mean, everyone gets photons when they come in.
Absolutely.
And if they don't, it's only because the others are being used on someone else that, not to say they need it more, but if we're working on a spine because someone is in pain, we can usually take care of that without a laser. But if we're working on a brain that is autistic, we're going to be using all of our lasers on it. So it's kind of a priority thing at times, but so one thing I always wanted to ask is, how did you guys, you don't have to say everything, come up with, or how did you start diving into the settings on the laser?
Well,
or I guess maybe explain the difference between just running a laser, like it's been when lasers first came out, just running continuous, as opposed to running pulsed or running a program.
Absolutely. So big question, right? First thing is what does a laser do? I
Yeah, I
always
guess.
like this quote.
Yeah, let's start there. Yeah.
I like this quote that healers of the past, healers of today, and healers of the future will always utilize photons, electrons, and frequencies, right? Dr. Jerry and Robert Becker, they taught us that cells run at a certain voltage and they need to reach a certain voltage to repair and replicate, right? We're always turning over.
Mm-hmm.
Our body is always turning over, and we can go into those little segments in another show. So what does the laser do? Well, you have a dysfunctional cell. It's not producing ATP. Maybe the mitochondria is shut down. Well, the laser itself, those photons provide not only energy or ATP on the spot, but they start repairing those cells so those cells can produce more ATP. I,
Mm-hmm.
I read research all day long. And in research, as you know, everybody's trying to sound smarter than the other person, right? We learned a lot of $10 words in school, didn't we, Doc?
Oh yeah.
And you read that research, and it used to take me 3 hours to read a research paper because I had to look up all the words. I love this one researcher though. He was writing about photobiomodulation. He gave that long paragraph as to exactly what it was doing on a neurophysiological level. But in the end, he provided one sentence. One sentence. Photobiomodulation provides and inspires ATP production. I love it.
Easy
I
enough.
love it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what the laser does. Is it's our job to recognize, and there can't be there's not usually a set protocol for things. Easy with that broken toe. My daughter thinks it's a magic wand for pimples, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's our job when we get these complicated cases to analyze that individual and work at strengthening those weaknesses. I can't remember the original question, but I hope I expounded enough. What was the original question, Alice?
Well, the original question was difference between, running a laser, running continuous,
Oh,
or running programs. But then like you had just answered, we didn't even answer what the heck a laser does. So
well, and a lot of the research, the majority of the research is just on continuous photons with no free. Remember, energy has the ability to deliver information through a wavelength of color. That information is called frequency, often known as pulsed, right?
mm-hmm.
Pulsed. I started studying Royal Rife many years ago. Everybody, a lot of people know about Royal Rife and frequencies, right?
Yep.
There are a couple legends in frequencies. Nogier was a French doc. He was a neurologist and an auricular acupuncturist, and he put together a lot of frequencies and tested them out. Royal Rife, even back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, guess what he delivered his frequencies through? Light. It was called the beam ray. He had one of the original lasers. And so now we know a lot about the Rife frequencies and providing them through sound. But back then, the technology with sound was not good. But today, Rife would be a very impressive man delivering those frequencies through the laptop because the technology has come that far.
Right.
So you study those frequencies, and in the research you dig in. Do you know? And I had to ask these questions. Oh, wow. So I'm told that every muscle, organ, and gland in the body, that's all of you, we know the frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do we know these frequencies? And I found out they've been doing vibrational studies, sending sound waves to the human body for years because frequencies are just digits. And they need the digits. The engineers need the numbers to do the calculations to put somebody up in space or deep underwater. That's how we know the frequencies that are needed. So you scour through the research, you study these grades, and then you put together different sets of frequencies. And here's a kicker as well. is remember the voltage from the laser. That's where the magic happens. Now, there's a little list of importance, and the voltage from the laser is number one. Somebody smarter than me once said, if you have something that's broken or battered or needs strengthening, just hit it with continuous photons. If you just hit it with continuous photons, you can hear the music beautifully. But if you add a frequency, it tunes in the music just a little bit better. I thought that was cool.
Brilliant.
So, yeah. So if I did, let's say, break my big toe, yeah, I would actually absolutely use a pain frequency that we put together. That's true. And we would raise the voltage. And I know when you have throbbing pain, those cells are acting at a certain voltage. It's actually minus 50 milliwatt, right? So you raise that to get some pain relief. When I got some pain relief, I might switch over to a bone repair setting, a DNA repair setting, an inflammation setting. All of those are right. But if I were to hit that big toe with a liver setting, I would still get progress. I would still heal. That frequency, that liver frequency would just become a moot point. Right?
Yep.
So pretty cool.
Yeah, because photons are still getting in.
Absolutely.
But it may not be as efficient, but still getting in.
Oh yeah, we always try to do the best we can, right?
Right.
You can't hurt anybody with this laser. We don't laser healthy tissue. I get asked that question all the time. How much is enough? Well, you laser. We made a lot of changes. You're strengthened. You and I, Doc, have so many income measures and outcome measures that when it's done, right?
Right. Exactly. So something that I wanted to talk or that has just been kind of showing up a lot since I've been using lasers. And I looked into it before, and I know I asked you, which Dr. Griswold is like my he's pinned on my phone for all of those that have iPhones. He's one of my 2 or 3 people that are pinned at the top for my messages. One is my wife. One is my wife. The other is my best friend and marketer, who is DeFactory. So if you need a digital marketer, please call DeFactory out of Lee Summit. And then the other is Dr. Griswold. So I had texted you about the light boards or the light, all these light panels that are popping up.
Oh yeah.
We'll have to talk more about specifics and lasers and how awesome these are. But something that's going to be in the back of people's minds is, okay, so here's a shed light laser, and it's a pretty big investment. But why can't I just go get some light panel for like $500? So if you want to go into that.
Well, it is a great question, and we always like to look back on history, right? We started off this conversation because history is interesting. What is your history, Griswold? Is those light panels? There's been research on photobiomodulation since the 1960s. It is just now coming pretty much out of the closet because Harvard University, Michael Hamlin, has published several textbooks, and so even Medicaid and Medicare have adopted CPT codes for photobiomodulation. Even on the National Cancer Institute website, they have a video about using photobiomodulation for brain tumors. So all of it is coming forward. All of it is coming forward. Those panels. Go ahead.
Which is huge, by the way. Sorry, because I know that when I was in school, they said no lasers on cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. This week I worked on two cases involving, having Dr. D'Onofrio as a mentor. We talked about that 20%, right?
Yep.
And you and I both know the third rail is probably pretty dangerous to even talk about it. But I usually handle. I do. Let's just say I'm working with an oncologist in Dallas right now, Dr. Eugene Wazinski, and we're co-managing the case. And I've co-managed a lot of cases with an MD named Jerry Tennant. And I know we're segueing away from the panels and into this big talk, right?
Yeah.
So we'll get back to that. Let me talk about the panels real quick.
Sure.
Does everybody know that marijuana, cannabis, CBD is pretty popular in America now?
It's medically legal here in Missouri.
Absolutely, and more across the nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even before it was legal, I would suspect that people grew plants in their homes. Is that true? I don't know anybody.
I don't know of anyone, but I'd
those
assume.
growers, exactly. So this is a PG radio show, and so those growers, there are a couple companies in China, and they put together those red light therapy or panels that you could hang in your basement to give the plants the photons needed to grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when lasers, all this hype about photobiomodulation over the past 10 years, those companies started marketing to the healthcare market. So the beam physics on those lights, they're for plants that are 10 feet below rather than human beings. That's one of the differences. Plus, they're scattered. They're incoherent light like this. They're not coherent light like this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that they're bad. If all photons work, right, Alex? All photons are wonderful. I mean, I'm going to go out in the sun and lay by the pool a little bit later. Those panels, you have to be pretty close to get the dose that's needed to treat something that is a little bit more serious, like Alzheimer's or we did mention cancer or a neurodevelopmental delay, anything like that, right? So those panels, they have all the hype, all the marketing, but they're not necessarily therapeutic for the big things that come into our office.
Right.
Will they help? All photons help.
Right. Yeah, I think that the biggest thing I tell patients is they're like, okay, can I just get a light panel? Okay. Yes. How big of a bang for the buck are you going to get? And are you going to use it properly? And then the other thing I don't know, because of that lack of coherence with the light and not coming down directly on you, is it, I don't know how far in the body it's getting, and I don't know how long you have to sit there and stand by the panel. So there's like two major unknown questions that leave a patient kind of high and dry. So most of the time, at least our patients don't get those. If they already have them, then we have to walk them through how to get the most out of them, which is stand right next to them. And then you have to do your research in terms of how long to stand there, because I don't know. And then you might have to monitor, let's say, if it's a mitochondrial issue you're having, and mitochondria is all about turning over oxygen in the cells, then you might have to monitor your pulse oxygenation or your pulse or blood pressure as you do it to make sure you're not overcooking yourself one way or another. Sure. Otherwise, I think the long story short is I'm not sure if they're worth it. Maybe, like you said, it's all good, but there's a couple unknowns in terms of how long you have to hang out. And then you have to monitor yourself. And then I think that one thing that's been helped with a few patients is skin conditions, because it'll at least get that. So it'll clear that up. Well, whatever the situation is. So
absolutely, and that when I wanted to put this out there because there is a lot of research, and if you're listening to this and you're wondering if a laser, we weren't supposed to talk that much about the laser. We're supposed to talk about you, Alex, right?
Nah.
is you can Google photobiomodulation and anything. I spent yesterday morning looking for photobiomodulation and a goiter, right? I couldn't find anything, so I had to go to prostate research, because we're dealing with hyperplasia. not everything is studied, but there is so many research articles, and sometimes you have to link 2 or 3 together to find the evidence needed. Now, just remember also when you're reading that research, it's important to ask yourself a couple questions and find out the answers. Number one, who paid for the research? Number two, is the research in vivo in the body, or is the research in vitro outside the body? Okay. You know, even if you Google photobiomodulation and cancer, a lot of wonderful, by the way, yeah, we should say a lot of disclaimers about that. We're not here to advise anybody on how to treat anything. What I find is intelligent people just want to entertain the ideas of others. If there was something going on with me, I would like to know all the options so I can entertain what I want to do for myself and my family, right? That's why we talk about these different subjects. But in vitro, in vivo. Also, what kind of energy was used? You know, a lot of times, you know, the research project is I'm going to use this laser for 6 seconds on this tooth that's bothering me. I'm going to do it every day for 6 seconds. Oh, there was no change. Well, maybe there was a problem with the amount of energy being delivered, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's exciting stuff when you learn those rules and you read about research, because you can eliminate the sound bites. You know, I think we all understand that the internet has 2 perspectives, maybe 3 or 4, right? It's not really straightforward, but information is confusing.
Yeah. It like I tell patients, I'm like, you can go get your Google PhD on this, but then we'll have to have you come back and we'll sort out a few things as how it applies to you.
Absolutely.
Is the main thing. So I guess since we were talking about cancer, and that brings up a good point. We're not here making claims, but because we brought it up, what is the latest with research and cancer and lasers? And I think one important topic to bring up with it is, to my knowledge, most cancers do not have mitochondria, which is one reason why using low-level light therapy or photobiomodulation can be somewhat efficacious to at least help a patient, even if it's pain, making them more comfortable.
Very good point. Now that is Dr. Alex Nelson. That's a that is I love that. I love that you summed it up that way, right? And we forget about history, we forget about knowledge, and so many things are dictated by systems that everybody should fit into, right? And more people are coming out of the woodwork and saying the system doesn't work for us. But is the system going to change? No,
probably not.
Not today.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the research is spectacular. In 1931, there was a Dr. Otto Warburg, and he won a Nobel Prize for proving that chronic disease, specifically cancer, cannot exist within an oxygenated environment. And that research that we're talking about, and they're careful. I mean, everybody's careful. Is some of the research is in conjunction with conventional treatments,
right?
Yeah, and some is on its own. The Warburg effect, it's called the Warburg effect. You know, the Warburg effect within the body inspires the immune system around the problem, right? And then the immune system takes care of the problem. To answer that generally, we're going down a rabbit hole that we're going to be on somebody's radar,
right?
You know, we could talk about big things. Absolutely, is you mentioned that the neurochildhood behavioral realm.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, it was that you didn't know anybody on the spectrum. It didn't exist, right?
Hmm.
It was so rare that it wasn't talked about in medical school. I'll give you a little pearl also. In medical school, if you were in medical school before 1965, the professors would talk about Alzheimer's and dementia for maybe 4 or 5 minutes within a class. 4 or 5 minutes within a, that's not much time. And they would
Hmm.
ensure the doctors at that time, well, don't worry about this one because right now the stats are 4 in a million. And in a 30-year career, you'll probably never see anybody with Alzheimer's and dementia.
Oh
What has
man.
changed? A lot has changed. I just got done writing a protocol for an MD in New York. Her mom has moderate to severe Alzheimer's and dementia. We've written several. The research is outstanding on these neurodegenerative conditions out of Canada. They're interviewing loved ones. There's a YouTube video out there about loved ones being interviewed, getting their loved ones back, pretty much just by lasering their sinuses and their gut and their cervical spine every other day for 2 or 3 months. And that changes things. And there's a reason for it. There's a reason why my mom doesn't tell me the same stories on Monday and Friday anymore. Right? Is because when you laser the sinuses, it brings blood and oxygen to the small capillary beds of the nasal cavity, which in turn flushes the brain with blood and oxygen, voltage blood and oxygen, right?
Right.
Healing. It also lights up the olfactory bulb, which plugs into the hippocampus. Mom, nice to talk to you. Rather than mom, you told me this on Monday.
Right.
So a lot of we're throwing down some we're throwing down some stuff, aren't we?
Yeah.
Talking about some big stuff.
Yeah. I think,
Exciting.
yeah. And again, not making claims, we're not trying to step on toes, and we're not saying don't go and do your conventional care and go get all of your opinions. It's just the whole point of this show is to let people know there's options. And
Exposure, right?
yes,
Exposure.
yes, there are some seriously awesome options. Even just last month, or it might have been last month, there was a gentleman who came in. He stroked out, and he had someone looking over him. He was looking over this gentleman because he had a headache for 3 days. And then finally his daughter was on the phone and was like, you need to go to the ER. And he was stroking out, and it started in the back of his brain, his cerebellum. And then the thing is it, over that time period, it had spread on the entire right side of his brain, just like a wildfire over those days. And he should have every reason to have all these deficits. But when he got to us, he was pretty well buttoned up with a lot of physical therapy, occupational therapy, some speech issues, but there were some balance problems, and peripheral vision was not really there. So we said, going through our vindication process that we do in our office, or not vindication, but screening process, he came from Colorado. We get him on the phone, get his wife on the phone, talk about what happened, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what's been done, what hasn't been done. And then we say, yeah, no, this is perfect. You'll be a great candidate. Let's get you down here. And then we, as we say, blasted his brain for a week, where we
Mm-hmm.
did all of our rehab. But we do our rehab. We rehabbed those weak areas of the brain with the laser, because like you said, you shine that little handheld laser on the brain, it's going to go in there. And when we shine on the brain, it's going to make that area of the brain work more efficiently that we're activating. And he's already just gone up exponentially in terms of balance, coordination. Vision's improved a little bit, but that peripheral vision is such a high cortical processing
Oh yeah.
uh, uh, phenomenon that that's going to take a little bit more time. But I know that when people stroke out and they lose peripheral vision, it usually takes a year. So our goal with that was to speed it up. But that's the possibility with this, is instead of him waiting a year or more to kind of get his life back and go enjoy his coffee with his buddies and enjoy his grandkids and all this other stuff, we can do it in months' time. that's the amazing part of this. And they didn't really know that this was an option. Luckily, his daughter was a chiropractor who kind of heard about what we were doing, and heard about the laser, and now she's like, okay, now I got to get one.
It is part of the survival kit. Once you, it's a part of the survival kit. Once you learn about.
Oh, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I mean,
So versatile.
you keep producing kids over there. How many times have you used it on, in the house on the kids? Right.
So full disclosure, we brought it home every day for like months, but now we bring it home about once a week. But now it comes home more often where we're handing it over to the neighbors. So, I mean, during the winter months, it's home more because we're lasering for immune system boosting and protecting to make, because our boy's 4.5, so he's just in a cesspool of gobbledygook and whatever those kids do with themselves all day at preschool. So,
oh yeah. 4.5. I didn't realize that. We got to talk more.
4.
Time flies.
Yeah, 4.5. Well, I guess it's kind of cool. He's going to be 5, and he's turning 5 September 18th. If that date rings a bell.
September 18th.
You have dove too far into your studies. That's chiropractic's birthday.
I was selfishly thinking about something in my life. Is that my wedding anniversary?
Yeah, no, that's chiropractic's birthday. So he, our boy was born on the day that, for those of you who don't know, Harvey Lillard, a janitor, received his adjustment from D.D. Palmer in Davenport, Iowa. Now, as the story goes, he was deaf, and then it was, depending on who you hear it from, maybe you know more, it was within 1 adjustment or 2 to 3 adjustments, he got his hearing back. So how the heck do you adjust someone and then their hearing comes back? It doesn't mean everyone needs to go run to the chiropractor who's deaf. And whoever is deaf is not listening to this. So if you know someone who's deaf, it doesn't mean you go run to the chiropractor. It's just that when you adjust someone, you're changing the ability for the brain to process sensation, generally speaking. And so when DD adjusted him, his ability to process that sensation improved. And there's a lot of geek speak under that. And his hearing came back. And that's how that happened. So, but chiropractic's birthday. And that's kind of cool, being the son of 2 chiropractors. So
that is cool. I love it.
Yep.
Forgive me, I drifted off because of Harvey Lillard and everybody. What Dr. Alex said was, what we did was we added energy, or we added force into, DD did, into an area and removed some interference. We know that the cranial nerves, if you adjust the neck, or if you adjust, there's rumors out there that, because back then you weren't allowed to touch the neck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's different stories about what happened, as if DD patted him on the back and he got his hearing back, right? It wasn't publicized that he adjusted the cervical spine. And did he know what was going to happen? He didn't know what was going to happen. Right?
No.
And so it was just knowledge that was needed that provided a stepping stone for DD to dig deeper into the nervous system.
Yep.
I love that story.
Speaking of DD, that kind of reminds me of, his son BJ, and what a lot of people don't know, and I'm sure you know, is BJ ran for lack of a better term, a psych ward. And there was another chiropractor that ran one in Colorado at one point. But BJ had a clinic, even with a primitive EEG back in the day, where they were working on people with psychological problems, I think a lot of it was women because, unfortunately, women that are listening, back in the day, people thought that women literally went crazy every month, that they were getting taken over by the devil, or depending on your beliefs, or it was a condition that women had. Every month they got taken over. And well, we found out it's because of their menstrual cycle, but um so some women were in there for that, but otherwise there were people in there for serious psychological problems. And I don't know if you know this, but do you know what it was that BJ was doing in that clinic?
Tell me.
So this was the exact dates. This was before he retired. So we're looking at, I believe, 40s and 50s. So
Yeah.
Dr. Agos out of Cleveland University is going to kill me for not remembering this, but um, all they did was adjust, fed them fruits and vegetables, and healthy lean meats straight from the farm. So from farm to table, as we call it nowadays, how food should be, and made them exercise and get out in the sun. Get
Ah.
out in the sun.
Ironically, that's the exact same thing I do with my wife every month. I'm just kidding. Just kidding, honey.
Right.
Part of it.
Oh, you know.
Go ahead.
But yeah, that was all that they did. I mean, they ran their exams, and like I said, he had an EEG at one point, which is really cool. Then they made him get outside and get exercise and eat right and take stress out of their life. It kind
Absolutely.
of and that kind of reminds me of today's society, especially with COVID going on. And I don't know about you, but when we opened this place, we opened our office March 2nd of 2020. Then March 23rd, our county shut down. I think it was March 23rd, our county shut down. Nick's kind of trying to remember. I don't know the exact date. Anyway, we ended up seeing a lot of people for obviously anxiety issues, depression problems, fears. So we were not only using our lasers, we were using our lasers for a lot of that, but not a sponsor, but we were using our NeuroSage, and we were using other tools in our bag to help get people to relax their nervous systems. And what I say is take their 1 gallon bucket and increase it to like a 2 gallon bucket so they can handle their day more.
Yeah, yeah.
But part of what we were talking about is there's no secrets to this stuff. We said now's a great time. You need to go on walks, more family time. You need to go shop on the outside aisles of the store. Get away from anything that's boxed or canned. Get out in the sunlight more. It's even though it was 2020 and COVID, a lot of that was summertime. So get out there and enjoy the sun. But a huge piece of that was that laser with all of what was going on in 2020.
Well, and may I say that the laser was a small piece. Alex Nelson was the big piece, right? So again, electrons, photons, and frequencies. That's what you're describing, right?
Yep.
Put good frequencies inside of you. Put some energy inside of you. Get outside. Put your feet on the earth. Electrons. Sit in the sun. Photons. Eat the good food. Frequencies, right? Because that was that. Our world has changed forever on that one. I know we're running short on time now, and we could talk about COVID forever. And the ramifications, right? The ramifications of our society. Because a lot of separation came into play. And that was one of the dangerous things, is so much separation on the TV. It was a political year, the COVID hit, everything else. It was disastrous for the small family unit, unless it was recognized that separation had to stay outside the door.
Yeah.
And it pulled some families closer together. That's one of the benefits.
Yeah. And something I kind of want to talk about, and we're kind of running low on time, but Nick's not a hard stopper. So we'll kind of recap lasers at the end, but I want to talk about 528.
528. 528. Hit it with 528. Hit it with
that
some love. Hit it with some love.
changed my, just completely changed my outlook. That's what was like the light bulb that went off for me. And Lauren, I mean, we at 528 is saved on the favorites. Me.
Absolutely. That's the one. That's the most popular frequency on that laser because it's DNA repair, right? And scientifically, it's been proven that 528, which is a Safagio frequency, everyone, Safagio frequencies are everybody knows what Safagio frequencies are, but most people don't know they know it. The musical scale: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Right.
Yep.
The frequencies of different chakras, Safagio frequencies. These are numbers that are repeated in biblical texts around the world. And some people call them God's healing frequencies. I know at least 2 or 3 practitioners, three, I think, that use nothing but Safagio frequencies, and they get great results. 528
Incredible.
is esoterically known as the frequency of love and miracles. Scientifically, DNA repair. And my mentor used to walk around the room during Dr. John D'Onofrio during the WAFL seminar. And I mean, that's one of the beautiful memories I have of him. Is he'd come up, he was a big Sicilian, gigantic bear of a man, but he'd come up and grab my face and say, hit it with some 528, hit it with some 520, hit it with some love. Right. Now that is, I'm talking about frequency, studying frequencies. We both have big families that come in and see us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have kind of a small clinic, a small treatment room, and I have this big family that comes in, and Dad's a big man. They have 5 kids from 10 down, and then Mom and the father, and they all come in. And they'll come into the treatment room and it gets real small. There's a lot of chaos, and I'll go over to my phone, and I have a Safagio app, and I'll just very lightly, I'll turn on 528. And about 2 or 3 minutes later, the chaos calms.
Oh my gosh. You know what I'm going to download after this?
You pump that out in the speakers out in the world. But absolutely, DNA repair, love and miracles. Are we allowed to talk so generally about frequencies?
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff.
Right. And something that's really come up a lot because, and kind of going back to like COVID, not to bring it up, but that's what we did. We ran 528, or me is 528 on do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We ran that. That was all the time, because when we're working with lasers, we can run, like you said, continuous, just run light, and that's great. Or we can get a little specific and do the frequency of what the tissue needs. So if we're working on someone's brain and they're not processing the world around them very well, they're stressed out about COVID and what's going on, you can sit here and run through seems like hundreds of settings on the laser between brain and cerebellum and thalamus and whatever it is. Or we just honestly be like, these people just need some love. Let's just give them love and just hit them, and then let everything else sort its way out. And people were walking out of there with, like I said, a bucket. That's just, they have a bigger bucket to handle their day, because sometimes you can't sit there and change someone's life by saying, okay, you got to quit your job, or you got to stop doing this project, or you can't take the kids to all these sports anymore. You just got to stop. Like, that's not going to happen. You got to give them a bigger capacity to handle it, or they're going to fall apart. And
stress, right?
Yep. Stress.
You and I learned that there are 4 reasons why people get sick. 4 reasons: stress, whether it be emotional, spiritual, chemical, or physical; lack of movement, toxins, or vitamin, mineral, systemic enzyme deficiency. All of that includes or lays underneath the umbrella of a voltage. Somebody's voltage gets low in different areas, and we react to stress a different way. Stress doctors.
All right. That's right.
Cool.
That's right. Well, all right. So I guess you want to plug yourself.
Well,
Where can everyone
I want
reach
to
you?
tell you also, just personally, and for everybody listening, that yes, we usurped the Avant laser and we added the shed light frequencies. In a month, we're going to come out. We're going to clean up that laser because there were some defaults in there and everything else. And we're coming out with we're going to have the old frequency sets, but we're adding a sports performance file, and we're going to expound on some neurological stuff.
Yes.
So new frequencies coming in a month. Okay, frequency MV. For anybody curious about lasers, on a daily basis, I write emails and I answer questions. I make protocols for people all around the world, as a matter of fact, and just Google shed light laser, Avant laser, shed light. If you want to get specific, email shedlight information at gmail.com. Miss Holly's always available at 518-338-6658. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll sit down and answer them. Remember, one of the problems that we had when we start in life is I remember a time when there weren't any automated systems where people picked up the phone and answered questions, right? And when I started this company, I was pretty adamant about not selling widgets, right? This is not a widget. And in people who, I think we've proven that over and over again, people need time and care and guidance. And therefore, that's kind of the theme of the company is come join the family and we'll take care of you. Is that too geeky?
Nope. And I just want to end on, which I haven't reiterated too much, is the very special thing about a shed light laser is it is FDA approved non-specific, which means you can use it on just about any body part, which of course it comes with some precautions like around your eyeballs. But the other important thing is you don't have to be a practitioner to buy one.
Absolutely.
You can be, anyone listening to this can look into buying one of these lasers and get the same guidance from Dr. Griswold.
Absolutely. Welcome to the crazy shed light family.
That's right. Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. I am going to look into coming to see you, or my wife coming to see you in July, or whenever the Y-files are. So I'll have to get those dates from you again.
Absolutely. We'll talk for sure.
Okay. Sounds good. Awesome. Well, it was good talking. Thank you so much. And then we'll have you on again. This is too much fun.
Yay! Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks.
See you, Doc.
See ya. All right, everyone. The Dr. Alex Show is brought to you by Apex Energetics, apexenergetics.com. First of all, to learn more about Apex Energetics, head on over to that website. If you want to get Apex Energetics directly, please call them 1-800-736-4381, or you can shop our online store. You can get to our online store at myhcpstore.com. Username is Dr. Alex. Otherwise, if you'd like to find a doctor that uses Apex Energetics, you can give them a call or go to the website and they'll direct you to a doc in your area that should be doing very good work with Apex Energetics. Apex has just been instrumental in our lives professionally and personally. About 6 years ago, we went through one of the most hellacious traumas that you can think of. And if it weren't for Apex with their stress support line of products, I probably would not be here. Point blank, period. And in the office, making the switch from other lines to Apex Energetics has sped up our results with our patients, supporting them through their healthcare needs, probably by 25%, if not more. And when it comes to Apex Energetics, we just want to remind everyone that we are here to not cure diseases, making claims. We're here supporting people, increasing their healthcare needs, and helping them achieve their goals. apexenergetics.com. The Dr. Alex Show is hosted by myself, a nerd, Dr. Alex Nelson. I'm a chiropractor, board certified in functional neurology and childhood neurodevelopmental disorders. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or most any of your other favorite podcast apps. The Dr. Alex Show is a production of Fredcasts. Think, speak, act.